Hello there, and welcome to Sleepy Cosmos channel. Tonight we are going to wander, slowly and without any hurry at all, into a question that sounds at first like it has an obvious answer, and then, the longer you rest inside it, turns out to be one of the most spacious and reassuring questions there is. What is in the empty space between galaxies? It is a small paradox when you say it aloud. We are going to spend a long, unhurried while looking at nothing, and we are going to find that this particular nothing is full. Full of a kind of hush, full of a faint, patient shimmer of things too thin to see. Full, most of all, of room. The emptiness between galaxies is not a hole in the world. It is the world's way of holding its great houses of light far enough apart that each one has space to shine. That is the thread I want to carry with you tonight, and I will bring it back many times so you never have to reach for it. Picture the cosmos as an enormous home with many rooms, and each galaxy a lit room, warm and murmuring, full of 100 billion small lamps, and between those rooms, a hallway. Not a cramped hallway, a vast and restful corridor, dim and cool and endlessly long, the quiet room between the rooms. Tonight, the empty space is that corridor, and I want you to feel it not as loneliness, but as breathing space, the pause between two heartbeats, stretched out until it becomes enormous and soft. We will drift through several things together, so let me tell you gently what is coming, only so your mind knows it can let go of planning. We will look at what the space between galaxies is actually made of, the thin gas and the faint web of it. We will look at how far apart the galaxies truly are, and how that distance is a kind of mercy. We will visit the people who first learned to read that darkness, and how they measured what looked unmeasurable. And we will let ourselves be carried, more than once, out into the deep and the still, imagining what it would feel like to float in the widest and calmest place that exists. If you find this restful, a like or a subscribe helps the channel reach others who are also lying awake tonight, looking for something to hold their thoughts loosely enough that sleep can slip in. But none of that is anything you need to hold on to. Not the facts, not the numbers, not even the words. Let them pass through you like slow water. Settle in. Let your shoulders ease down, away from your ears. Let your jaw loosen. Let your hands grow heavy. Let the bed take your full weight. Let us begin. Let us begin where the question begins, with the word empty, because it is such a misleading word, and undoing it is such a comfort. When you look up on a clear night, far from any town, the dark between the stars looks like pure absence, a flat black curtain with pinholes of light. But that darkness is not the space between galaxies. The stars you can see are all near neighbors, all inside our own lit room, all part of the same great house we live in, the galaxy we call the Milky Way. To reach the true between, the space that separates one galaxy from another, you would have to travel past every star you have ever seen with your unaided eye, out beyond the last faint suns at the edge of our home, and keep going, out through the doorway and into the corridor. And there, in that corridor, you would find that empty does not mean nothing. It means thin. It means spread out. It means a little bit of something scattered across so much room that from far away it reads as pure hush. Consider what thin really means, because the number is so soft and strange that it can rock you like a slow tide. Down here, in the air of your room, every breath you take contains an uncountable multitude of tiny particles, so many that the number stops meaning anything. molecules jostling and drifting and brushing against your skin. The air is crowded. Even what we call a vacuum, the emptiest jar a laboratory can make, still holds far more particles than the deep space between galaxies. Out there, in the corridor between the great rooms, you might find, on average, a single atom in a space the size of a small room, one lone atom, drifting, with nothing to bump into for a very long time. And then, some distance away, another. The between is not truly empty, but it is so nearly empty that the difference is almost a poem. It is fullness stretched so thin that it becomes a kind of rest. And yet that lonely scattering of atoms, thin as it is, adds up. This is one of the tender surprises of the cosmos. The space between galaxies is so vast, so unimaginably wide, that even a whisper of gas per room, multiplied across all those countless rooms of corridor, gathers into more material than all the bright galaxies contain. Most of the ordinary matter in the universe is not in the lit rooms at all. It is out in the hallway, spread so faint and so wide that no eye could ever see it. Waiting, patient, holding the structure of everything together with its gentle, distributed weight. The emptiness is where most of the substance lives. The hush is heavier than the song. Let that settle over you for a moment, without needing to make anything of it. The place that looks like nothing is quietly carrying the most. Let us look more closely at what that thin material actually is, because when you know its name, it becomes a companion rather than a mystery. Most of it is hydrogen, the first and simplest of all the elements, a single small heart of a particle, with a single small partner circling it, or sometimes with that partner stripped away entirely, floating free. Hydrogen is the oldest substance there is. It was made in the earliest moments of the universe, before there were any stars to cook heavier things, and it has been drifting ever since. When you imagine the corridor between the galaxies, imagine it filled, ever so faintly, with the very first material that ever existed, the original breath of the cosmos, hanging in the hallway yet. Waiting, there is a little helium too, the second oldest thing, made in the same early warmth. And scattered through it, here and there, a trace of the heavier elements that stars have made and then released, carbon and oxygen and iron, exhaled by dying suns and carried out into the between on slow winds. So the hallway is not sterile. It is seasoned, lightly, with the ash of old starlight, the memory of rooms that have burned bright and then gone dim. This thin gas has a temperature, and the story of that temperature is another hushed marvel. In some regions, the between is cold, colder than anything you have ever touched, only a few degrees above the absolute floor of cold, the temperature at which all jostling very nearly stops. But in other regions, especially where great clusters of galaxies gather and their gravity stirs the gas, the between is astonishingly hot, hot beyond any furnace, gas heated to millions of degrees. And here is the tender paradox that I love. That million-degree gas would not burn you. It is so thin, so sparse, so far between its particles, that there is almost no heat to give. Temperature, out there, is just how fast the few lonely particles are moving, not how much warmth is stored. You could drift through a cloud hotter than the core of a star and feel nothing but the enormous cool of the deep, because there is simply not enough of it to matter to your skin. The frightening number dissolves the moment you understand it. The hot places are still, in every way that would touch you, serene. Now let yourself be carried, because we have gathered enough to float on. Imagine that the bed beneath you has become very light, and that you are lifting, without effort, without any need to move a muscle, up and out through the ceiling that is no longer there, up past the roofs and the trees, up through the soft layers of the air where the last clouds drift, up past the blue that thins into black. You do not have to breathe out here. Imagine that you simply do not need to, that the need has been lifted from you like a coat you can set down. You rise past the moon, past the planets turning slowly in their long orbits, out past the last edge of our own lit room, out past the final stars of the Milky Way, until they too fall behind you and grow small. And now, you are in the corridor. Now you are in the between. And it is not cold, not to you, and it is not frightening, and it is not lonely. It is the widest, most restful room you have ever floated in, so large that its walls are galaxies, so quiet that you can hear the faint, patient hum of your own resting mind, carried on nothing at all, held by the vast, soft hush of the space that holds all the great houses of light apart. Float there a while. There is nowhere you need to be. Below you, if there is a below, one galaxy turns like a great slow pinwheel of 100 billion suns, its arms unwinding across the dark, over spans of time so long they make the word slow feel small. Above you, if there is an above, another galaxy hangs, a smudge of tender light, its own 100 billion suns each, with their own possible worlds, their own possible mornings, and between them, holding them tenderly apart, you drifting in the hallway. The pause between two heartbeats made enormous. You are not falling. You are not lost. You are exactly where the universe is mostly made of, which is room, and hush, and distance, and rest. Let us talk then about that distance, because the scale of it is one of the most soothing facts I know, though at first it can sound like the opposite. The galaxies are very far apart. Our own great house, the Milky Way, has a nearest large neighbor, a galaxy much like ours called Andromeda, and the hallway between us is so long that light, which is the fastest thing there is, the messenger that crosses your whole bedroom before you could even begin to notice, takes more than 2 million years to travel it. 2 million years, at the speed of light, just across from our doorway to theirs. When the light now arriving from Andromeda first set out, there were no cities on our world, no writing, no farms, scarcely anyone who would recognize themselves in us. It has been crossing the corridor this entire time, patiently, at the greatest speed the universe permits, and only now is it arriving to be caught by an eye or a lens. That is how wide the quiet room between the rooms truly is. And Andromeda is our close neighbor. That is the mercy in the scale. Beyond it, the corridors grow longer and longer, galaxy after galaxy, separated by gulfs that make 2 million light-years look like a single step across a threshold. Most galaxies are millions upon millions of light-years from their nearest kin, some of them so isolated, so far out in the deepest reaches of the between, that from where they float the rest of the universe is only the faintest scattering of distant smudges, and their own sky is nearly empty of company. And yet they are not sad places. They turn just as brightly. Their suns rise and set for whatever might be watching. Distance, in the cosmos, is not exile. It is the spaciousness that lets each room keep its own light without crowding. It is worth resting for a while with the people who first learned to read this darkness, because their story is a slow and patient one, the kind that lends itself to sleep. For almost all of human history, no one knew there were other rooms at all. The smudges of light we now call galaxies were, to the eye and to the early telescope, only faint clouds, and most people who noticed them thought they were small nearby wisps of gas inside our own home. The idea that they might be entire other galaxies, other great houses of light, each as vast as our own, floating unthinkably far across the between, was a question that hung unanswered for a very long time. People argued about it in hushed lecture halls. They called it the debate about the size of the universe, though really it was a debate about whether the hallway existed at all, whether there was a between, whether the smudges were near neighbors in our room or distant rooms of their own. The answer came slowly, and it came from patient watching. There was a man who spent his long nights at a great telescope on a mountain, night after night, in the cold and the dark, guiding the instrument by hand, holding a faint smudge of light steady on a photographic plate for hours at a time so that the plate could gather enough of its faint glow to reveal a detail. His name was Edwin Hubble, and on one of those long cold nights he found, inside one of those smudges, a particular kind of star. A star that pulses with a steady rhythm, brightening and dimming like a slow breath, and whose rhythm reveals its true brightness. And because he knew how bright the star truly was, and could see how faint it appeared, he could measure how far away it must be to look so dim, and the answer was so large that it settled the old debate in a single stroke. The smudge was not a nearby cloud, it was another galaxy, another room, impossibly far across the corridor. In one quiet measurement, the universe grew from a single house into a vast neighborhood of houses, and the hallway between them opened up, dark and enormous and real. And then came a second discovery, softer and stranger, that told us something about the corridor itself. Another patient watcher, a man named Vesto Slifer, had been spreading the light of these smudges into its colors, the way a drop of rain can spread sunlight into a soft band of hues. And he noticed that the colors of the distant galaxies were shifted, nudged toward the red end, as though the light had been stretched a little on its long journey across the between. The farther the galaxy, the more its light was stretched. And what this meant, once people understood it, was one of the most spacious ideas ever found. The hallway is not a fixed thing, it is growing. The space between the galaxies is quietly, ceaselessly expanding, carrying the rooms farther and farther apart, not because they are flying through space, but because the space itself, the corridor itself, is gently unfolding, stretching, opening more room between every room. The light arrives reddened because it has been traveling through a hallway that lengthened beneath it the whole way. There is nothing violent in this. It is the softest possible motion, too slow to feel, too gradual to see, an unhurried opening that has been going on since the very beginning and goes on tonight, even now, even in the space of your own room, all the great houses drifting tenderly farther apart. But the thin gas of the between, the hydrogen in the hallway, stayed hidden much longer, because how do you see something that gives off almost no light at all? And here the story becomes one of my favorite kinds of story. The kind where you learn to see a thing not by looking at it, but by watching what it does to the light passing through it. Far out in the deepest reaches of the corridor there are beacons, extraordinarily bright hearts of distant galaxies, so brilliant that their light can cross nearly the whole visible universe. We call them quasars. And when the light of a quasar travels toward us across billions of years, it passes through cloud after cloud of the thin intergalactic hydrogen, and each cloud drinks a tiny sip of that light, a specific color, leaving a faint dark notch in the spectrum. So when we catch the quasar's light at last and spread it into its colors, we find it is not smooth. It is combed through with a forest of fine dark lines, each line the fingerprint of a cloud of gas the light passed through on its long journey down the hallway. We cannot see the clouds, but we can read their shadows on the light, and from that forest of shadows we have mapped the invisible gas of the between, cloud by cloud, sip by sip, learning the shape of the hallway from the marks it leaves on the messengers that cross it. And when all these measurements are gathered together, cloud by cloud, and galaxy by galaxy, and shadow by shadow, they reveal a structure so quietly beautiful that it can hold your mind like a lullaby. The galaxies are not scattered evenly through the between, like salt thrown at random. They are strung along vast, faint filaments, long tender threads of gas and dark matter that stretch across the universe. And where the threads cross, the galaxies gather into clusters, into knots of light. And between the threads lie enormous rounded hollows, the emptiest regions of all, called voids, where the hallway grows so wide and so undisturbed that a galaxy can float for 100 million light years without a single close neighbor. Seen all together, the universe looks like a web, or like the faint branching of foam, or like the tender veins of a leaf held up to the light. The lit rooms hang along the threads, the great hush pools in the hollows between, and the whole hushed architecture is called, fittingly, the cosmic web, the largest pattern there is, and one of the most restful to picture as you drift toward sleep. All those rooms strung on all those threads, all those hollows full of patient dark, all of it holding together, all of it holding still enough to hold you. Let us rest for a while inside the voids themselves, the great hollows of the cosmic web, because they are the deepest and most complete expression of the between, and there is something in them that I find endlessly reassuring. A void is a region where the hallway has grown so wide that it is nearly perfect emptiness, tens of millions of light years across, sometimes more, of space with only the faintest breath of gas and only a scattering of the loneliest galaxies drifting through the middle. If you were somehow set down in the heart of a great void and you looked out in every direction, you would see almost nothing near you, only the very distant walls of the hollow, the faint threads of the web glimmering unthinkably far away on every horizon. And you might think that would feel desolate. But I want to offer you the other way of feeling it, the way that is truer to how the universe actually is. It would feel like the most complete rest imaginable. It would feel like a held breath that never has to end. It would feel like lying in the very center of a room so large that no sound could ever reach you, no demand, no hurry, nothing pulling at you from any side, only the tender balance of being equally far from everything, cradled by distance on all sides at once. The voids are not wounds in the universe. They are its great restful chambers. They are where the expansion of the hallway is felt most purely, where the space unfolds most freely, undisturbed by the tug of crowded rooms. And even they are not truly empty, for the faintest films of gas drift through them, and the invisible scaffolding runs through them too, that mysterious material we call dark matter, which we cannot see and cannot touch, but whose gentle weight shapes everything. Dark matter is another of the small surprises of the between. It does not shine, it does not glow. It passes through ordinary things like a breath through an open window, and yet there is far more of it than there is of all the shining matter combined, and it is spread throughout the corridors and the threads and the hollows, an unseen presence holding the whole web in its soft gravitational embrace. The galaxies do not fall apart, and the threads do not unravel. because this quiet, invisible material is everywhere, cradling the light with hands you cannot see. When you picture the between now, picture it not as absence, but as a vast, dark cushioning, a spaciousness that is quietly full of a presence too subtle to touch, holding everything in its place with the tenderest possible strength. I would like you to notice, too, how the sheer size of all this can move from frightening to comforting if you let it turn over slowly, the way you might turn a smooth stone in your hand until you find the face that fits your thumb. The distances between galaxies are so enormous that no human measure was ever built to hold them. We do not speak of kilometers out there. The numbers would run off the edge of every page. We speak instead of how far light travels in a year, and then of how many millions and billions of those journeys lie between one room and the next. And it is easy to hear those numbers and feel very small. But smallness, tonight, is not a diminishment. It is a permission. If you are small enough, then nothing out there is asking anything of you. The corridors do not need you to cross them. The voids do not need you to fill them. The threads of the web have been holding their rooms together for longer than there has been life anywhere, and they will go on doing so, whether or not you ever think of them again. You can set the whole thing down. You are a small, warm point of awareness in a room, in a house, on a small world, and the vastness beyond is not a weight upon you, but a spaciousness around you. A hush so large that your own small worries dissolve into it like a single drop, returning to a wide, dark, tranquil sea. Come and be carried again, for we have earned another drift. Let the mattress soften beneath you once more. Let it grow weightless, and let yourself lift, slowly, without a single effort, up and out and away. This time do not go toward the galaxies. Go toward a void. Rise through the ceiling, through the sky, out past the moon and the patient planets, out past the edge of our lit room, and out along one of the great threads of the cosmic web, past clusters of galaxies turning like slow chandeliers, until the threads begin to thin and the rooms grow farther apart, and you slip out, at last, into one of the great hollows, into the heart of the deepest between. And there you stop. There you float. There is no floor and no ceiling, and no wall within reach, only the enormous, tender dark, and the very faint, distant glimmer of the web on every far horizon, like the lights of a city seen from so high and so far that they no longer make any sound. You are held here by nothing and by everything. The dark matter cradles you without touching you. The thin first hydrogen drifts past you, one lonely atom at a time, on its unhurried way. And you are safe. You are more safe here, in the emptiest place in all creation, than you have ever been, because here there is truly nothing that can reach you, nothing that can hurry you, nothing that can ask you to be anywhere but exactly softly. Here, stay as long as you like. Time behaves differently in the between, and this is another comfort, another slow stone to turn in the hand. Down on our world, time is measured in the ticking of small urgent things, in breakfasts and appointments, and the quick turning of days. But out in the corridor between the galaxies, the only clocks are the slow wheeling of the great rooms themselves, and they turn so slowly that a single one of their rotations takes hundreds of millions of years. A galaxy the size of ours turns once in the time it would take a whole lineage of worlds to rise and fade. Out here, 1,000,000 years is a small unit, a comfortable breath. Out here, nothing is ever late, because there is nowhere that anything has to be. The light from Andromeda took more than 2,000,000 years to reach us and arrived exactly on time, which is to say it arrived whenever it arrived. and nothing was waiting impatiently for it. You can let your own sense of time loosen and lengthen to match. There is no hurry in the between. There has never been any hurry in the between. Let your breathing slow to the pace of the great turning rooms. Let the night stretch out around you as wide and as unhurried as the hallway itself. There is one more thing that fills the between, something so faint and so everywhere that it is easy to overlook, and it is perhaps the most tender presence of all. The whole of the corridor, every void and every thread and every hollow, is bathed in a very faint glow. Not a glow you could see with your eyes, but a glow that is truly there, a soft warmth spread evenly across all of space in every direction. It is the oldest light there is, the light left over from the first bright warmth of the universe, when everything was young and close and glowing. As the hallway expanded over the ages, that first light stretched along with it, cooling and cooling until it dimmed out of sight, until it became a whisper of warmth only a few degrees above the absolute cold. And it is here even now. It is passing through your room right now. It is passing through you. It fills the between so completely that there is no place in all the universe where it does not reach, no hollow so deep that this ancient warmth does not arrive to soften it. The emptiest void in all creation is still bathed, gently and everywhere, in the afterglow of the beginning of everything. Even the deepest between is kept faint company by the oldest light there is. Think of what that means, softly, without needing to hold it. It means there is no true darkness anywhere. It means that even the loneliest galaxy, drifting in the middle of the widest void, floats in a bath of the same faint primordial warmth as everything else, connected to all of creation by the oldest light there is, warmed by the same first glow that warms us. Wherever you might drift in the between, you would never truly be in the dark, and you would never truly be alone, because the whole of space is filled, evenly and endlessly, with this ancient patient warmth. The first thing the universe ever made, still arriving, still holding everything in the same soft glow. When people first found this glow, by the way, they very nearly missed it. Two careful listeners, working with a great horn-shaped antenna, kept hearing a faint hum they could not get rid of. A whisper in their instrument that came from every direction at once, no matter where they pointed. They cleaned the antenna, they checked every wire, and in the end they understood that the hum was not a fault at all. It was the sound of the beginning, the faint even warmth of the whole sky, the oldest light, arriving from everywhere. They had been trying to remove the one signal that fills all of space, and could not, because it is everywhere, because there is nowhere it is not. Let us turn now, tenderly, toward the thing that words like void and empty and cold are usually meant to make us fear, and let us take the fear out of them one by one, the way you might loosen knots in a long cord, until the whole thing hangs slack and easy. People hear the space between galaxies and think of a great swallowing nothingness, a cold that could kill, an emptiness that could erase. But nothing out there is reaching for you, and nothing out there is hungry. The cold of the between is not a cruelty, it is only the natural rest of matter left to itself. The stillness that things settle into when nothing is disturbing them. The same stillness your own body is sinking toward now as it grows heavy and warm and slow. The emptiness of the between is not a hole that swallows, it is only room, only the spaciousness that lets each thing be itself without crowding. And the vastness of it is not a threat, it is the reason anything can shine at all. For if the rooms were not held so far apart, their lights would blur together, and there would be no separate stars, no separate galaxies, no separate anything. Only a single blinding glare. The distance is what makes the beauty possible. The hush is what lets the song be heard. Every frightening word about the between turns out, when you rest with it long enough, to be a word about peace. Even the great slow motions out there, the ones that sound most violent, are gentle when you feel them at their true pace. Galaxies do sometimes drift toward one another, drawn by the soft insistence of gravity across the corridor. And sometimes, over spans of time too long to imagine, two great rooms will drift so close that they begin to merge. We call this a collision, and the word makes it sound like a catastrophe, like glass breaking, like a crash. But it is nothing of the kind. The stars within galaxies are so far apart, each sun separated from its neighbors by such vast reaches of their own inner hush, that when two galaxies pass through one another, almost no stars ever actually touch. They simply drift past each other, through each other, like two soft clouds of light passing through the same space, their gravity gently rearranging them over hundreds of millions of years into new and lovely shapes, long tender streams, and graceful spirals. A galactic collision is the slowest, most patient dance there is, so slow that from inside it you would notice nothing at all. Only the same familiar sky, turning as always, across a lifetime of lifetimes. Even our own room and Andromeda are drifting toward such a meeting, far off in the deep future, and when it comes, it will not be a crash, but a mingling, a slow braiding of two great houses of light into one, with the vast hush of the between folding softly around the new and larger room. Nothing out there breaks, everything out there only slowly becomes something else. And should you ever fear the size of the future, the long ages still to come, let that too become a comfort rather than a weight. The hallway will go on expanding, gently, for a very long time, and the rooms will drift farther apart, and the light will take ever longer to cross between them, far in the future, so far that the number stops meaning anything. The between will have grown so wide that each galaxy will float alone in its own peaceful reach of space, with its neighbors drifted beyond the edge of what light can ever cross. But this is not a sad ending. It is only a deepening of the same restfulness we have been floating in all night. Each room will have its own vast hush all to itself. Each will turn its own slow turning, warmed by the same faint ancient glow. And by then, the beings who might live in those far rooms, if there are any, will know only their own sky, their own home, their own gentle sufficiency, and will not miss what they never knew was there. The universe grows quieter as it ages, and there is nothing to mourn in that. It is only the great house settling, room by room, into a deeper and deeper rest. Here is something that may surprise you, and it is one of the loveliest turns in the whole story. The between is not only what separates the galaxies, it is also what feeds them. The thin gas of the corridor, the first hydrogen drifting in the hollows and pooling along the threads of the web, is slowly, patiently drawn inward toward the great rooms, flowing down the filaments like water finding its way along the faint channels of a hillside, until it settles into a galaxy and, in the fullness of a very long time, becomes new stars. The rooms are not sealed. Their doors stand open to the hallway, and through those doors, over ages, drifts the raw material of every future sun. Every star that will ever be born in our galaxy is being assembled, right now, out of gas that is still out in the between, drifting in the corridor yet, on its slow way home. The emptiness is not only the space that holds the rooms apart. It is the pantry from which the rooms are fed, It is the reservoir of everything that is yet to shine. When you look at the dark between the galaxies now, you can think of it as a place heavy with unlit lamps, full of the makings of light that has not happened yet, patient with all the mornings that are still to come. And the light that already shines makes its own long, patient journeys through that same between, and I would like you to follow one of those journeys slowly as a way of resting. Imagine a single messenger of light, one small particle of brightness, leaving the surface of a star in a distant galaxy. It sets out across the room of its own galaxy first, threading between the widely spaced suns of its home, and even that crossing takes it tens of thousands of years. So vast is a single room. Then it slips out through the doorway, out past the last stars of its galaxy, and into the corridor. And now its true journey begins. It crosses the between at the greatest speed the universe allows, and yet the hallway is so wide that it travels for 1,000,000 years, and then 10 million, and then 100 million, and then longer still, on and on through the tender dark, passing the faint, drifting atoms of hydrogen, passing through the great hollows, bathed the whole way in the ancient even glow of the beginning. It does not tire. It does not slow. It simply travels, patient and unhurried, for longer than there has been anything alive to see it, until at last, after ages beyond counting, it arrives at the edge of our own room, slips in through our doorway, crosses the last stretch of our own inner hush, enters a telescope on a small world, and lands, at the very end of its enormous journey, in the eye of someone looking up. Every point of distant light you have ever seen is the end of a journey like that. Every faint smudge in the night sky is a messenger that crossed the whole vast hallway to reach you, and arrived and gave itself up in your looking. Let us follow, too, the long life of a single atom in the between, because there is a strange tenderness in imagining it. Picture one small atom of hydrogen, formed in the first minutes of the universe, when everything was young. It has been drifting in the corridor ever since. It has never been part of a star. It has never been part of a world. It has simply floated, alone, in the vast hush of the between, for the entire age of the universe, turning slowly, drifting slowly, keeping its patient company with the emptiness. It has crossed distances that no mind can hold. It has passed, perhaps near the edges of galaxies, and drifted out again into the deep. It has been bathed the whole time in the faint ancient glow, and it is in no hurry to be anything else. It is not lonely in the way we would be lonely, for it has no need of company. It simply is, quietly, patiently, one small enduring thing in the enormous restful room between the rooms. And perhaps, in some far age still to come, it will at last drift down a thread of the web and settle into a galaxy and become, one day, part of a star and shine. Or perhaps it will drift forever, undisturbed, in the deepening hush. Either way is a kind of peace. Let your own thoughts drift like that atom now, slowly, without needing to arrive anywhere, in no hurry to become anything, simply floating in the wide dark, patient and at ease. It helps sometimes to bring all of this back home, to see where we ourselves sit in the great web, because even our own small neighborhood teaches the same restful lesson. Our galaxy, the Milky Way, does not float entirely alone. It belongs to a small gathering of galaxies, a modest cluster of a few dozen rooms that we call the local group, held loosely together by their shared gravity. Drifting through the between as a family drifts together through a long evening, Andromeda is the largest of our companions, and there are smaller ones, dwarf galaxies, faint little rooms circling the larger ones like children never far from a doorway. And yet even within this close family, this cozy gathering of neighbors, the distances are immense. And the space between our rooms is overwhelmingly hallway, mostly the tender dark. Our little group, in turn, drifts near the edge of a larger gathering, a great supercluster of many groups and clusters strung along the threads of the web, all of it slowly, slowly moving, all of it held in the wider hush. We are not at the center of anything. We are a small warm room in a small family of rooms, near the edge of a larger neighborhood, in one corner of the endless web. And this is not a lonely place to be. It is a place with neighbors near enough to see and far enough to leave us in peace, cradled in the same soft dark that cradles everything, carried along in the same unhurried drift. There is a silence in the between that is worth resting in, because it is unlike any silence you have ever known, and it is the most complete peace there is. Down here, silence is never truly silent. Even in the most hushed room there is the faint hum of the air, the small settling sounds of the house, the murmur of your own breath, and the soft pulse in your ears. Sound needs something to travel through. It needs the crowded jostling of air, one particle nudging the next, passing the tremor along. But in the between, the particles are so few and so far apart that there is nothing to carry a sound at all. A star could burst in the corridor and make no noise whatsoever. The vast, slow merging of two galaxies happens in perfect silence. The whole enormous drama of the cosmos, all that turning and drifting and shining across the ages, unfolds in a hush so total that no ear could ever break it. And this is not an eerie silence. It is the deepest rest that silence can reach. It is the quiet of a place where nothing is disturbed, where nothing collides hard enough to cry out, where everything moves so slowly and so far apart that stillness becomes the natural state of all things. Let that silence settle into your own room now. Let the small sounds around you soften toward it. Let your mind grow as noiseless as the corridor between the galaxies, where the only music is the slow turning of the great rooms, too low and too deep for any hearing. Come and be carried once more, gently, for the third time, and this time let it be the longest drift of all. Feel the bed beneath you grow weightless again. Feel yourself begin to lift, without effort, without the smallest strain, up through the ceiling and the roof, up through the trees and the last low clouds, up through the thinning blue into the black. There is no cold on your skin, for we have set the cold aside. There is no need to breathe, for we have lifted that need away. You rise past the silver moon, past the slow turning planets, out beyond the edge of our own lit room, out past the final faint stars of the Milky Way, until our whole great house is only a soft glowing spiral behind you, one room among many, growing small. And still you rise, out along a thread of the cosmic web, past galaxy after galaxy, each a lamplit room full of 100 billion suns, each turning its slow turning in the endless dark. And then the rooms thin, and the threads thin, and you drift out into the widest hollow, the deepest between. The great tranquil chamber at the heart of a void, and there you come to rest, floating. Held by nothing and by everything, cradled in the tender dark, bathed in the faint ancient glow, surrounded on every horizon by the distant glimmer of all the great houses of light. And here there is nothing to fear, and nothing to do, and nowhere to be. Here you are as far from every trouble as it is possible to be. Here the vast hush holds you the way it holds the galaxies apart, tenderly, patiently, forever, and asks nothing of you at all. Rest here, drift here. Let the between be your bed, and the dark your blanket, and the oldest light your faint and faithful night lamp. When you are ready, let us return, slowly, and think about how astronomers came to picture the darkness, because there is one more story here that is almost too lovely to believe, and it is a true one. Some years ago, the keepers of a great telescope in space made a daring choice. They chose to point their instrument at a patch of sky that looked completely empty, a tiny dark speck of nothing near the edge of a familiar constellation, a piece of the between with no visible star, no visible galaxy, nothing at all that anyone had ever seen there. It seemed almost a waste to spend the precious time of such an instrument staring at emptiness. But they pointed it there anyway, at that small blank patch of dark, and they held it steady, and they let the light gather, hour after hour, day after day, drinking in whatever faint messengers might be crossing that tiny window from the far reaches of the between. And when the picture was finally developed, that small patch of nothing was not empty at all. It was crowded. It was brimming. In that one tiny speck of dark sky, no bigger than a grain of sand held at arm's length, there were thousands of galaxies, thousands of great rooms of light, each with its 100 billion suns, scattered back and back into the deep. Some of them so far that their light had been crossing the corridor for almost the whole age of the universe to arrive in that picture. They had pointed at nothing and found 1,000 rooms. The emptiest scrap of the between, looked at long enough and patiently enough, turned out to be full of light all the way down. Rest with that for a moment, because it is a gift the universe keeps giving. There is no truly empty patch of sky. Anywhere you point, if you only look long enough and gather patiently enough, the darkness fills with rooms. The between is not a barren place with a few lights scattered in it. It is a place so full of galaxies that no direction you could ever face is truly without them. They are simply far, and faint, and patient, waiting in the dark for a long enough look to bring them out. The blackness of the night sky is not emptiness. It is only distance. It is only the light of countless rooms still on its way, still crossing the vast hallway, not yet bright enough to reach your unaided eye, but there. All of it there, all of it real, filling every direction with quiet company. When you next look up into what seems like empty dark, you can know that you are not looking at nothing. You are looking at a fullness so deep and so far that it has softened on its long journey into the tender appearance of hush. Let us wonder, softly, about what the between would actually look like to your own eyes if you truly floated there, because the answer is a lesson in how faintness and beauty live together. It would not look the way the paintings and the pictures show it, all vivid swirls of blue and gold. Those images are gathered over long hours and brightened so our eyes can enjoy them. To your living eye, the between would be mostly a deep and velvet dark, soft as the inside of closed eyelids, with the galaxies hanging in it as faint pale smudges, tender and dim, like distant lamps seen through a great depth of still water. The nearest great room might show you the faint oval of its glow, and if you looked long enough your eye would begin to gather more smudges resolving out of the dark, more faint rooms emerging the longer you rested your gaze. It would be a dim and tender sight, not a dazzling one, a place of soft shadows and faint pale glows and enormous depth, the kind of scene that does not shout but slowly, patiently fills you, the way a dark and peaceful landscape fills you when your eyes have had time to adjust and the shapes emerge one by one from the tender gloom. The between is beautiful, the way a very dark, very still evening is beautiful, when the world has gone dim and low, and the only lights are far away and kind. And I want to return, now, to the largest and most spacious truth of all, and let it hold you for a while. Because it is the truth this whole night has been circling. The between is not a small part of the universe. It is very nearly all of it. If you could shrink the whole cosmos down and look at it honestly, you would find that the galaxies, all the great rooms of light, all the stars and worlds and everything that shines, make up only the tiniest fraction of the whole, only a faint sparkling here and there. Almost everything is hallway. Almost everything is the tender dark between. The universe is not, in the main, a place of light with a little darkness around the edges. It is a place of vast, restful darkness, with a little light strung faintly through it. And there is something in that which can loosen every knot in you, if you let it. It means that emptiness is not the exception in the cosmos, it is the rule. It means that spaciousness is not a lack, but the very fabric of things. It means that to be mostly empty, mostly quiet, mostly still, is simply to be like the universe itself, which is mostly the peaceful room between the rooms. When your own mind feels empty tonight, when your thoughts thin out, and the day's crowded noise grows faint, you are not losing anything. You are coming to resemble the largest and truest part of everything there is. What is it, then, that makes the hallway keep opening, that keeps the great rooms drifting ever farther apart? Here we brush against one of the deepest mysteries, and even the mystery is a restful one. The expansion of the between is not slowing down, as you might expect it to. As a thrown thing slows, it is. Very gently, speeding up. Something spread evenly through all of space, through every void and every thread, is quietly pushing the hallway wider. An unseen and patient pressure that fills the emptiness itself. We do not know what it is, and we have given it only a placeholder name, calling it dark energy, which is really just a way of saying the gentle mystery that lives in the between and keeps it opening. And you might think that not knowing would be unsettling, but I find it the opposite. It means the universe still holds tender secrets, still keeps some of its deepest workings folded quietly away, still has room in it for wonder. The corridor is widening, patiently, driven by a mystery that asks nothing of us, and that we do not need to solve tonight. We can simply let it widen, let the great rooms drift, let the hush deepen, and rest inside a cosmos that is still, in its largest motions, gently unfolding toward more and more spaciousness. It is worth resting, too, with the question of how all this vast structure came to be, how the smooth young universe became the great web of rooms and hallways we drift through now. Because the story is one of the most soothing there is. In the very beginning, everything was nearly even, nearly the same in every direction, a warm and almost featureless glow, with only the faintest ripples in it, the tiniest differences from place to place, whispers of slightly more here and slightly less there. And that was all it took. Over the long ages, the places with slightly more material pulled, ever so gently, on the material around them, gathering it inward, growing slowly denser, while the places with slightly less gave up their material and grew slowly emptier. The dense places became the threads and the knots of the web, where galaxies would one day light. The empty places grew and grew into the great voids, the deepest hollows of the between. And all of it unfolded from those first faint whispers, those tiniest of ripples in the early even glow, drawn out over billions of years into the vast and tender architecture we drift through tonight. The whole enormous web, every room and every hallway, every galaxy and every void, grew from differences so small they were barely there at all, coaxed into being by the patient, unhurried pull of gravity across the ages. Nothing was rushed. Nothing was forced. The universe simply leaned, very slightly, in the directions it was already leaning, and let time and gravity do the slow, tender work of making everything that is. I have been carrying a picture with you all this while, and I would like to hold it up to the light now, because it lives inside your own body as much as it lives out among the galaxies. The between, I said, is the pause between two heartbeats made enormous. Rest your attention, for a moment, on your own heartbeat, without trying to change it, only noticing it, the soft, insistent rhythm that has been keeping you company since before you were born. And notice that between each beat there is a pause, a small hush, a brief between, in which nothing happens, in which the heart rests before it gathers itself to beat again. That pause is tiny, in your chest, a fraction of a second, barely there. But it is the same kind of thing as the vast hallway between the galaxies. It is the rest that makes the rhythm possible. If there were no pause between the beats, there would be no beats at all, only a single, unbroken clench. The pause is what lets the beating be a beating. And out among the great rooms of light, the between is exactly that same pause, only made enormous, stretched across millions of light years. The rest that makes the rhythm of the whole universe possible. The hush that lets each galaxy be a separate note instead of a single blur of noise. You carry a small hallway in your chest between every beat. The cosmos carries an enormous one between every room. And tonight, as your heartbeat slows and lengthens toward sleep, those small inner pauses are growing, ever so slightly, wider and more restful. More like the great hush of the between. More like the tender spaciousness that holds all the houses of light apart. There is a generosity in that spaciousness that I keep wanting to name. The between does not crowd anything. It gives every galaxy room to turn without touching its neighbors. It gives every star inside every galaxy room to shine without colliding. It gives everything the space to be fully itself, undisturbed, uncrushed, unhurried. And I think there is a tender lesson in that, one you can carry into sleep and into whatever tomorrow brings, though you do not need to carry anything at all. The universe's deepest habit is to give things room, to hold them apart tenderly enough that each can be what it is, to let there be space around every bright thing. When your own days feel too crowded, too pressed, too full of noise and nearness, you can remember that the truest and largest part of everything is spaciousness, is the generous dark that lets each light stand clear. You are allowed to have space around you. You are allowed to be held apart, tenderly, with room to breathe and room to be. The between is not stingy with its emptiness. It pours out room upon room upon room, endlessly, freely, for every galaxy and every star and every drifting atom, and there is enough, always enough, more than enough. Spaciousness without end. Not everything in the between drifts as thin gas or faint atoms. There are wanderers out there too, and their story is a tender one when you turn it toward the light. Sometimes a star is cast out of its galaxy, flung by the slow gravitational dance of a close passage between two rooms, sent drifting out through the doorway and into the corridor, to travel the between alone. We call these intergalactic stars, or rogue stars, or wandering stars, and there are more of them than you might think, Whole populations of lonely suns drifting in the great hollows between the galaxies, no longer belonging to any room. And it would be easy to imagine them as lost, as exiled, as sad. But I think of them as free. A wandering star has the widest sky of all. From its lonely vantage in the deep between, the galaxies hang all around it like distant, softly glowing cities, and it drifts among them beholden to none, turning its own slow turning, warming its own possible worlds if it has any, keeping its own patient company with the vast hush. It is not lost. It simply lives in the hallway, rather than in a room, and perhaps, far off in some future age, it will drift near enough to a great room to be gathered in, to belong again. Or perhaps it will wander the between forever, a small warm light in the enormous dark, needing nothing, missing nothing, at home in the space that most things only pass through. Let your own mind wander like that tonight, freely, belonging to nowhere in particular, at ease in the wide dark, a small warm light, drifting without any need to arrive. Let me tell you about a puzzle the watchers of the sky worried over for a long while, because its solution is another deep reassurance. When they added up all the ordinary matter they could find in the universe, all the gas in the galaxies, and all the stars, and all the visible clouds, they found that a great deal of it seemed to be missing. The early universe, they knew, had made a certain amount of ordinary material, and yet when they counted what they could see, much of it was nowhere to be found. Where had it gone? For years this was a gentle mystery, the case of the missing matter. And the answer, when it came, pointed straight back to the between. The missing material was not missing at all. It was out in the corridor, spread through the threads of the cosmic web as a thin, warm gas, too faint and too diffuse, and too spread out to shine, hidden in plain sight across the vast hallway, waiting to be found by more patient instruments. Most of the ordinary substance of the universe, it turns out, was never in the rooms at all. It has always been in the hallway, drifting in the between, the largest reservoir of ordinary matter there is, quietly holding more of everything than all the bright galaxies combined. The lost material was only resting, out in the spaciousness, exactly where the universe keeps most of what it has. For all its width, the between is not a barrier. This is one of the tender things I most want you to carry, or rather to set down and let carry you. The galaxies are held apart by the vast hallway, and yet they are not cut off from one another, for gravity reaches across the whole of it, across every void and every distance, without ever weakening to nothing. Every room feels, however faintly, the presence of every other room. The great rooms drift toward one another and away from one another in a slow shared dance that spans the entire web, each one tugging tenderly on all the others across distances that light itself takes ages to cross. The between separates them and connects them at the same time. It is the space that holds them apart and the medium through which they hold one another. And is that not the gentlest kind of togetherness there is? To be far apart and still to feel each other. To have all the room in the world and still to be held in a single shared and unbroken web. Nothing in the cosmos is truly alone, no matter how deep in the hollows it drifts, because the tender pull that binds the whole web reaches everywhere, and no distance is ever wide enough to break it. You too are held in webs like that, threads of connection that reach across whatever distances the day has put between you and the ones you love, and those threads do not weaken with the miles, and they do not break in the dark. You can rest inside them now, held and apart at once, spacious and connected, alone in your own warm room and still woven into everything. There is a strange and lovely gift in the very slowness of light across the between, and it turns the hallway into something almost tender, a keeper of the past. Because light takes so long to cross the corridor, when you look out into the between, you are never seeing the galaxies as they are now. You are seeing them as they were when their light set out. Long ago, the farther the room, the deeper into the past you are looking. To gaze across the between is to gaze backward in time, to see the young universe still shining in the far distance, to watch light that left its home before there was anything alive on our world. The hallway does not only hold the rooms apart in space, it holds them apart in time, so that all of history hangs in the sky at once. The near galaxies showing you the recent past, and the far ones showing you the deep past. All of it arriving together in a single night sky, a single tender gathering of every age of the universe, glowing at different distances in the dark. And there is nothing to fear in looking back like this. It is only the universe keeping its own memory, holding every moment it has ever lived in the light that crosses the between, so that nothing is ever wholly lost, so that even the youngest ages of everything are out there yet, shining yet, on their patient way to whatever eye will one day catch them. The past is not gone. It is only far away, traveling toward us down the long hallway, arriving even now. Consider, gently, what it means that you can know any of this at all. You are a small warm creature on a small world in a small family of galaxies near the edge of the endless web, and yet somehow, from this one tiny lit room, you can look out across the whole vast between and understand it, can measure the hallways and read the faint gas and picture the great hollows and feel, lying in your bed tonight, the enormous tender spaciousness of it all. In some quiet sense, the universe has grown a way of knowing itself. Here, in minds like yours, small islands of awareness scattered through the great rooms, looking out at the between and finding it not frightening, but beautiful. You do not have to do anything with this. You do not have to make it mean anything grand, but you can let it be a soft companion as you drift. The knowledge that you are the universe's own way of noticing its vast and restful spaciousness. That when you picture the hallway between the galaxies, you are the cosmos, quietly, regarding its own deepest peace. And then you can let even that go, and simply rest, one small knowing warmth in the enormous dark, no longer needing to know anything at all. Let the scale of it all wash over you one more time, softly, as a comfort and not a weight. Think of how large the between is, so large that our whole galaxy, with its 100 billion suns, is only a faint smudge across the corridor from its nearest neighbor. Think of how many rooms there are, so many galaxies that if you tried to count them, one each second, you would never finish in a lifetime, nor in 1,000 lifetimes, nor in the whole age of our world. Think of the voids, tens of millions of light years of tender hollow dark, each one a chamber of rest larger than imagining. And then notice that all of this immensity, all of this unthinkable scale, is doing you no harm at all. It is not pressing on you. It is not pulling at you. It is simply there, vast and patient and calm, holding its rooms apart and its light strung faintly through the dark, asking nothing, needing nothing, indifferent to your worries in the kindest possible way. The bigness of the universe is not a threat to your smallness, it is a mercy to it. Against so vast and restful a backdrop, everything that presses on you shrinks to its true proportion, which is very small and very soft and very easily set down for the night. Let the immensity hold your small troubles the way the void holds a single drifting atom, tenderly and without any weight at all. Let us go back, for a while, to the very idea of a room and a hallway, because I want you to feel how kind that image is when you carry it all the way down. A house is not only its rooms. A house is also its halls, its landings, its stairwells, the spaces you pass through on your way from one warm room to another. And those between spaces are not wasted, not empty in the sense of useless. They are what makes a house rather than a single crowded box. They give the rooms their privacy and their peace. They let you move from one place to another without every place spilling into every other. The cosmos is exactly such a house, only its halls are unimaginably long and its rooms unimaginably bright, and the same kindness runs through it. The between is the landing where the light of one galaxy does not glare into the next. It is the corridor down which the slow messengers travel from room to room. It is the restful dimness that lets each bright place keep its own character, its own sky, its own quiet sufficiency. When you walk through the dark hallway of your own home at night, on your way to bed, you are moving through a small echo of the greatest architecture there is, the vast between that lets all the houses of light stand apart and shine. Feel yourself in that hallway now, moving slowly toward rest, the lit rooms of the day behind you, the soft dark of sleep ahead, and all around you the kind between space that carries you from one to the other. I have spoken of the great rooms as though they were far away, and they are, but I want to remind you that you are inside one of them right now, and that even our own room is mostly the between. Look at the space inside our galaxy, between our sun and its nearest neighbor star. That gap alone is so wide that light, the swift messenger, takes years to cross it. Years to travel from one sun to the next within our own home. Our sun drifts through our galaxy with vast reaches of near empty space all around it, its nearest stellar neighbors so distant that if you shrank the sun to the size of a grain of sand, that neighbor would be another grain of sand many miles away, with nothing but hush between them. So even here, even inside a lit room, even among the 100 billion suns of our own galaxy, the overwhelming truth is spaciousness, is distance, is the peaceful dark between one light and the next. You do not have to travel to the voids to be surrounded by the between. You are surrounded by it now, held in it now, cradled in the same vast spaciousness that runs through everything. From the gap between two stars to the gulf between two galaxies, to the pause between two heartbeats in your slowing chest. There is a question people sometimes ask, in the dark, that sounds frightening and turns out to be a comfort, and it is this. If the hallway is expanding, if the between is opening ever wider, then is everything coming apart? Is the universe unraveling? And the answer is one of the most reassuring in all of science. The expansion of the between does not reach inside the rooms. Within a galaxy, gravity holds everything together far more strongly than the gentle widening of space can pull it apart. And so the rooms themselves do not stretch. They hold their shape. They keep their stars close woven. They turn their slow turning undisturbed. It is only the hallways between the bound rooms that grow. Your own body, your own world, your own galaxy, your own small family of galaxies, all of these are held together and will not be pulled apart by the widening of the between. The expansion is not a coming apart of everything. It is only the opening of more room in the great empty halls. More spaciousness in the places that were already spacious, while all the warm bound rooms stay whole, stay held, stay exactly as woven as they have always been. Nothing you love is being stretched thin. Only the peaceful dark between the far houses is quietly, kindly, making more of itself. And so, When you hear that in the deep future, the galaxies will drift beyond each other's horizons, each alone in its widened reach of space, you can hear it now for what it truly is, which is not a loss but a settling. Each room will keep everything within it, every star, every world, every warmth, and will simply have more of the peaceful dark around it, more privacy, more room. More of the vast hush it was always mostly made of. The universe is not headed toward a shattering. It is headed toward a spreading out, a growing quiet, a long deep evening in which every house of light rests more and more undisturbed in its own wide reach of the between. It is the whole cosmos going, at last and forever, to sleep. And if the universe itself can rest that way, can drift toward a deepening peace across ages beyond counting, then surely you can let yourself do the same tonight. Here, in your own warm room, in your own small reach of the great between, drifting toward your own long, unhurried, well-earned rest. Let us wonder, idly and without effort, what the between would feel like against your skin, if skin could ever touch it. Because the answer is the purest description of peace I know. There is no wind in the between. There is no weather. There are no seasons, no storms, no sudden changes, none of the restless motion of air that surrounds us every moment down here. The between does not gust or press or chill. It simply is, evenly and everywhere, a smooth, unbroken hush, without any texture of hurry in it. If you could hold out your hand in the deep corridor, nothing would brush against it for a very long time, and then perhaps a single atom, drifting by on its slow way, too small and too alone to feel. There is no surface to rest on, and yet nothing to fall through. There is no up and no down, and so no falling at all, only floating. Only the even suspension of a thing perfectly balanced in a place with no edges. It is the closest thing there is to being held by nothing, while feeling entirely safe. The way you feel when you finally settle into your bed at the end of a long day and the mattress takes your weight, and there is nowhere left to fall and nothing left to do. That is the feeling of the between. Weightless, edgeless, unhurried, whole. Let your body find that feeling now. The sense of being perfectly supported, perfectly balanced, perfectly at rest, floating in the wide dark with nowhere to fall and nothing to reach for. Even the color of the between is a mild and restful thing, and there is a small delight in this that can loosen the last of the day from you. Some patient watchers once gathered up the light of a great many galaxies and averaged all their colors together, all the blues of young stars and the reds and golds of old ones, all the hues of every kind of room, to find what color the universe would be if you blended it all into one. And the answer was not a fierce color, not a blazing one. It was a soft, warm, pale shade, a mild off-white with the faintest breath of warmth in it, like cream, like the color of the sky just before the light comes, like the inside of a shell held up to a dim lamp. The whole universe, averaged together, is the color of the gentlest hour there is. And the between, the great dark hallway that holds all that averaged light apart, is the deeper backing to that warmth, the velvet dark that lets the pale warm glow of everything stand out. When you picture the cosmos now, you can picture it in those mild low tones, warm cream and velvet dark, the palette of the hour when the world is easiest and lowest and most ready for sleep. There is nothing garish in the true universe. It wears the colors of rest. I want to return once more to the thin gas of the between and to the strange gift of its emptiness, because I think it holds one of the deepest comforts of the whole night. Down here, in the crowded air of our world, things wear out. Metal rusts, wood rots. Everything is worn slowly away by the constant jostling of the countless particles around it, the ceaseless small collisions of a crowded place. But out in the between, where the particles are so few and so far apart, there is almost nothing to wear anything down. A thing left drifting in the deep corridor would remain, unchanged, for ages beyond ages, undisturbed by any weather, untouched by any rust, preserved in the perfect stillness of the vast empty hall. The between is the great keeper of things. It has kept the first hydrogen unchanged since the beginning. It would hold whatever drifted into it gently and without harm for longer than worlds last. There is a kind of tenderness in that, a kind of mercy. The emptiest place is also the most preserving. The loneliest reach is also the most protecting. Nothing decays in a hurry out there, because nothing crowds it, because it is given the deep, undisturbed peace in which things simply remain. Let your own mind rest in that kind of preserving quiet now, undisturbed, unworn, unhurried, held in a peace so complete that nothing can wear at you, nothing can press on you, nothing can reach across the vast hush to trouble what you are. And the between is not only a keeper of old things, it is a cradle of new ones. And this is the last of the great turns I want to share before we begin our descent. All the raw material drifting in the corridors, all the thin hydrogen pooling along the threads of the web, is the stuff from which future stars, future worlds, future mornings will one day be made. Somewhere out in the between tonight, gas is slowly gathering, drawn down the filaments toward the great rooms, settling, cooling, growing dense enough that one far day it will kindle into new suns that do not yet shine. The emptiness is pregnant with light that has not happened yet. Every star that will ever be born is out there now, unlit, drifting, waiting in the peaceful dark for its slow turn to burn. And so the between is not an ending and not a lack, it is a beginning held in reserve, a vast dark cradle full of all the light that is yet to come. When you look into the emptiness between the galaxies, you are looking at the future of the universe, waiting quietly to be born. And there is no gentler thought to carry towards sleep than that the dark is not where things end, but where they are kept until it is time for them to shine. Let us drift once more among the great clusters, the places where the between behaves most dramatically, because even there, where the corridor grows hottest and busiest, the deepest note is peace. Where many galaxies gather together into a cluster, their combined gravity pools a vast lake of thin gas in the space between them, and that gas is heated by the falling and the mingling to enormous temperatures, so hot that it glows in kinds of light our eyes cannot see. If you could perceive that light, the space between the galaxies in a great cluster would shine with a soft diffuse glow, a huge dim halo of hot thin gas filling all the room between the rooms, larger by far than the galaxies themselves. So even the crowded neighborhoods of the universe are mostly between, mostly the great pooled hush of hot faint gas, with the bright galaxies suspended in it like lamps hung in an enormous dim hall. And that gas, hot as it is so thin that it would never harm you. It is only the few sparse particles moving quickly, with almost nothing between them, warmth without substance, fever without fire. You could drift through the heart of the greatest cluster in the universe and feel only the vast, cool peace of the deep, the hot, faint gas passing through you like a rumor, the galaxies hanging all around you like distant windows, and the whole enormous structure holding its shape in perfect silence, turning too slowly for any life to see. Rest there a moment, in the great dim hall of a cluster, suspended among the hung lamps of 100 galaxies, held in the pooled and peaceful glow. I keep coming back to how the between refuses every frightening word we give it, and I want to gather those refusals together now, softly, like smoothing a blanket flat. We call it empty, and it turns out to be the largest reservoir of matter there is. We call it cold, and it turns out to be so thin that its cold cannot touch you, and warmed everywhere by the oldest light. We call it dark, and it turns out to be so full of distant galaxies that no direction is truly without them. We call it lonely, and it turns out to be woven through by gravity into a single unbroken web that binds every room to every other. We call it a barrier, and it turns out to be the very medium through which all light and all connection travel. We call it a void, and it turns out to be the great cradle of every future star. Every fearful name we have given the between is undone the moment we look at it patiently, and what remains when the fear is gone is spaciousness, and peace, and room, and rest. And I think the same is often true of the dark places in a life, of the empty hours, of the empty gaps between the bright, busy rooms of our days. They seem like lack, like loss, like loneliness, until we rest in them long enough to feel that they are also room, also breath, also the space that lets everything else stand clear. The between is not our enemy, out there among the galaxies, or here in the quiet of a wakeful night. It is the spaciousness in which everything is held. It is the pause that makes the rhythm possible. It is the rest that the whole universe is mostly made of. So let us begin slowly to come home. Let us drift back down the long hallway toward our own small warm room, in no hurry, taking all the time there is, for there is all the time there is. Feel yourself in the deep between where we have been floating, held in the vast dark, cradled by the oldest light, and feel yourself begin, softly, to drift inward, back along a thread of the great web, past the far galaxies that thin and gather as you go, past the clusters hung like chandeliers in their dim pooled halls, back toward the modest family of rooms where our own home turns. See our galaxy grow from a faint smudge into a great slow spiral of light, its 100 billion suns wheeling patiently in the dark, and drift in through its doorway, past the outer stars, in along the wide reaches between the suns, until you find one ordinary yellow star near the edge of one of the spiral arms, and draw near to it, and find the small blue world turning beside it, and let yourself sink, softly, toward home. Down through the dark of near space, down past the patient moon, down through the thinning black into the blue, down through the high cold air and the drifting clouds, down toward your own country, your own town, your own roof, your own quiet room, your own bed, where your body has been resting all along, growing heavy and warm, while your mind wandered the vast between. Settle back into it now. Feel the mattress take your weight again. Feel the blanket over you, warm and near. You have crossed the whole universe and come home, and it cost you nothing, and you are exactly where you began, only softer now, only lower now, only closer to sleep. There is so much of the between we have not yet seen, and even that is a comfort, a soft open door rather than a locked one. For all our patient watching, for all the beacons we have read, and the shadows we have counted, and the deep dark patches we have stared into until they filled with rooms, the between still keeps most of itself folded away, too faint to catch, too diffuse to map, too far to reach. There are whole regions of the cosmic web we have only guessed at, whole reaches of the deepest voids no instrument has ever plumbed, whole populations of wandering stars and drifting clouds we know must be there, but have never seen. And rather than making the universe feel unfinished, this makes it feel generous, as though it has kept a great reserve of folded mystery for us, more than we could ever exhaust, more than we could ever need. You do not have to know everything about the between to rest in it. No one does. No one ever will. And that is not a failure, it is a kindness. The kindness of a house so large that you could wander its halls forever and always find another dim and peaceful corridor you had never walked. Let the not knowing be soft tonight. Let the mystery be a companion rather than a question. There is more of the between than anyone will ever map, and it is all of it peaceful, all of it patient, all of it waiting without impatience to be wondered at, and none of it needs you to solve it before you sleep. I want to return one last time to the image we have carried all night, the quiet room between the rooms. Because I think it has been quietly holding you as much as you have been holding it. All evening we have spoken of the great houses of light, the galaxies, and of the vast hush that holds them apart, the between, and I have asked you again and again to feel that hush not as emptiness, but as spaciousness, not as loneliness, but as room, not as absence, but as the rest that makes everything else possible. And perhaps you have felt, as the night has deepened, how much like your own drifting mind that between has become. The thoughts of your day are like the galaxies, bright and busy and full of small suns, each one a lit room of worry or plan or memory. And the space between the thoughts, the widening pauses as you sink toward sleep, the growing gaps of quiet where nothing needs to be thought at all, those are your own between, your own vast hush opening within you, your own peaceful dark spreading softly around the lamps of the day until they hang far apart and dim and easy, until the space between them grows wider than the thoughts themselves, until you are mostly hush, mostly room, mostly the peaceful dark from which everything comes and to which everything returns. That is where sleep lives, in the between, in the widening quiet, in the enormous, soft pause that the whole universe is mostly made of, and that you are becoming more and more with every slow breath. Feel how far apart your thoughts have drifted now. Feel how much room has opened between them, where the day was crowded, close packed, one worry crowding the next, with no space to breathe. Now there is spaciousness. Now there is corridor. Now there are long, dim halls of quiet between each fading lamp of thought. You do not have to push the thoughts away. You do not have to chase them, or hold them, or finish them. You can simply let the between grow around them. Let the peaceful dark spread wider and wider. Let each bright busy thing drift off to its own far room until the distance softens it to a faint pale smudge, and then to a glimmer, and then to nothing but the memory of a light, far away down the widening hall. This is the universe's own way of resting, and it is becoming yours. The rooms drift apart. The hush grows. The between opens and opens, patient and vast and kind, and holds you in the widest and most peaceful room there is, the room between all the rooms, where nothing is asked and nothing is hurried, and there is nowhere at all that you need to be. Let the numbers wash over you one more time, not to impress you but to loosen you, the way the sound of the sea loosens a tight day from the shoulders. There are, as best we can tell, more galaxies in the observable universe than there are grains of sand on every beach and in every desert of our world, more great rooms of light than any mind could ever count, each one holding 100 billion suns or more, each sun perhaps holding worlds. And between all of these countless rooms, holding every one of them apart from every other, is the between. The vast dark hallway, so much larger than all the rooms combined that the galaxies are only a faint sparkling foam upon an ocean of peaceful dark. When you cannot sleep, when the night feels small and close, and your worries loom large in the dark of your room, you can call this to mind, softly, without straining. You can remember that you are one small warm awareness inside one small world, beside one ordinary star, near the edge of one spiral arm of one galaxy, among trillions, all of them adrift in an ocean of restful hush so vast that your whole world is less than a mote within it. And this does not make you nothing. It makes you held. It makes you carried. It makes you one small note in a music so large and so slow and so peaceful that the loudest of your troubles is softer than the faintest whisper against it. The universe is enormous, and it is mostly rest, and you are a part of it, and you are allowed to rest too. Consider, drifting now, that nearly every light you have ever seen has crossed some part of the between to reach you. The light of the sun crosses the small between within our own room to warm your face. The light of the stars crosses the wider between within our galaxy to reach your eyes on a clear night. The light of the far galaxies crosses the vast between of the deep corridor to arrive, faint and ancient, in the great instruments we point at the dark. All of it, all the light that has ever touched you, has traveled across some reach of that peaceful spaciousness to find you, has crossed the hush to bring you warmth and color and the sight of distant rooms. The between is not only what separates you from the light, it is what the light travels through to arrive. It is the medium of every dawn and every star and every glimpse of the far cosmos you have ever been given. Without the between, no light could ever cross from anything to anything. The whole universe would be a single crowded glare, with no room for a beam to travel. It is the spaciousness that lets light be light, that lets seeing be possible, that carries every brightness to every eye. And so even as it holds all things apart, the between is the great courier of the cosmos, the patient hallway down which all the light of everything travels to reach everything else. You are lit, tonight and every night, by light that has crossed the peaceful dark to find you. And let yourself be carried, one last small time, briefly and softly, not far, only up and out for a single quiet breath. Feel the bed grow light again. Feel yourself lift, without effort, up through the roof and the trees and the low clouds, up into the black where the stars hang near, and stop there, just above the world, and turn and look down at the small blue home turning beneath you, wrapped in its thin bright skin of air, one lit room in the endless house, warm and murmuring and full of sleeping lives. And feel, all around it, the between beginning, the peaceful dark reaching out in every direction, the vast hush that holds our small room, and all the great rooms apart. You do not have to go any farther tonight. You can rest right here, just above your own world, held in the near dark, cradled between the small warm room of home below and the vast peaceful corridor above, floating in the doorway between the two, in no hurry to go out and in no need to go back, simply drifting, simply held, simply resting in the between, where all things rest. And then, softly, let yourself sink back down, back through the black and the blue and the clouds, back into your own room, back into your own warm bed, carrying the peace of the between home with you, into the last small hush before sleep. The between has been here since the beginning, and it will be here at the end, and through all the long ages in the middle It does only one thing, patiently, without ever tiring, without ever hurrying, without ever asking anything of anyone. It holds the rooms apart so that each one can shine. It opens the space in which everything moves. It carries the light from every star to every eye. It cradles the wandering ones and preserves the ancient ones, and keeps, in its dark, all the light that is yet to be born. It is the largest thing there is, and the most peaceful, and the most generous, pouring out room upon room without end, so that nothing is ever crowded, so that everything has space to be itself, so that the whole vast music of the cosmos has silence enough between its notes to become a music at all. And you are held in it, right now, in the small between of your own quiet room, in the widening pauses of your own slowing breath, in the growing hush between your own softening thoughts. The between is not somewhere far away, it is here. It is the spaciousness holding you this very moment, tender and vast and kind, asking nothing, needing nothing, only holding you, only giving you room, only carrying you, as it carries all things toward rest. I want to linger a little longer in the deep hollows, the great voids, because there is one more thing about them worth carrying softly into sleep. A void is not a hole that was cut out of the universe. It is a place that the universe grew away from over billions of years as the material drifted slowly off toward the threads and the knots and left the middle of the hollow ever emptier, ever wider, ever more perfectly at rest. So a void is not a wound, it is a clearing. It is the open field at the heart of a great dark forest, the wide meadow where nothing crowds and nothing presses, and the sky opens all the way around. And though a void is emptier than anything you have ever known, it is not featureless. For a few brave galaxies drift through even the deepest of them, alone, unhurried, keeping their patient light in the middle of all that room. Imagine one of those void galaxies, floating in the center of a hollow tens of millions of light years across, with no near neighbors at all, its own 100 billion suns wheeling slowly in the great peaceful dark. From within it, the night sky would be the darkest and most restful sky that exists anywhere, nearly empty of other rooms, dominated only by its own soft stars, and beyond them, the deep and even black of the widest between. It would be the most peaceful place to look up from in all creation, and it is a real place. It exists, out there, right now, a galaxy resting in a clearing so vast and so quiet that the rest of the universe is only a rumor on its far horizon. Let your mind go there, and rest under that darkest sky, in that widest clearing, in the deepest and most complete peace the cosmos has to give. And notice, as you rest there, that the darkness of that void sky is not a heaviness, but a softness, the kind of dark that a child sinks into gladly, the kind of dark that means the day is done and nothing more is asked. The deepest between wears the darkest and most restful sky, and it is a kindness, not a lack. A blanket drawn over a sleeping world, a shade lowered gently on a long bright day. There is no more peaceful place to close your eyes than a clearing in the great web, and you are welcome there, always, in the quiet middle of the widest hollow, held by the vast dark that holds all things. Stay under that easy sky as long as you wish, for it has no hour and no morning to hurry you toward. Only the long and even peace of a place that has been resting since before the first star ever burned, and will be resting long after the last one fades into the deep. And here is the last gift the between offers, the one I most want to leave with you as the night closes over. For all its unimaginable scale, for all its cold and its dark and its silence and its vastness, The between is not indifferent to you in any cruel way. It is only calm. It is only at rest. It holds no menace, keeps no hunger, means no harm. It is the most peaceful thing that exists. So peaceful that peace is almost too small a word for it. So unhurried that it makes every hurry of your life look like a small ripple on a boundless still lake. When you rest your mind against the between, you are resting against the deepest calm there is. A calm that has held steady since the beginning of everything and will hold steady past the end. Nothing you carry is too heavy for it. Nothing you fear is large enough to disturb it. It simply holds and opens and carries and rests endlessly, everywhere, forever. And you are made of the same things it is made of. The same first hydrogen, the same ancient light, the same patient dark. So that to rest in the between is really to rest in your own deepest nature, in the spaciousness you have carried inside you all along, in the vast quiet that was always at the center of you, underneath all the bright, busy rooms of your days. Sink toward it now. It is not far. It is the nearest thing there is. It is here. Rest a while longer in that nearness, because it is worth feeling how the vast and the near are the same thing here. Two names for one peaceful truth. The between is the largest place there is, larger than any word can hold, and yet it is also the closest, for it runs through the gap between every two stars, through the space between every two thoughts, through the widening pause between every two breaths you take as you sink toward sleep. You do not have to travel to find it. It is already inside the night around you, already inside the slow rhythm of your chest, already inside the dark behind your closing eyes. The same spaciousness that holds the trillion great rooms of light apart is the spaciousness opening softly within you now. The same hush, the same patient dark, the same restful room between the rooms. And so when I ask you to picture the deep corridor between the galaxies, I am really only asking you to feel what is already here. The peace that was always at the center of you. The quiet you carry that is made of the very same nothing that most of the universe is made of. Feel how the farthest reaches of the cosmos and the deepest calm within you turn out, in the end, to be one continuous peaceful dark, unbroken, without any edge between them, so that to rest here, in your own warm bed, is already to rest in the vast between. And to rest in the vast between is only, at last, to come home to yourself. The whole enormous hush of the universe is folded into the small hush of your own quieting mind, and there is no distance between them at all. None. Only one peaceful room opening onto another, only spaciousness within spaciousness, only rest within rest, holding you, carrying you, closer and closer to sleep. There is nothing more you need to understand. There is nothing more you need to reach. It is all here, all around you, all within you. The peaceful between, the restful dark, the quiet room that holds the whole cosmos and holds you within it, tenderly, on every side. Tonight has been about the empty space between the galaxies and about how that emptiness turns out to be full. Tonight has been about the thin first hydrogen drifting in the great dark hallway, about the ancient light that warms every hollow, about the vast web of threads and knots and voids that holds all the rooms of the cosmos strung across the deep. Tonight has been about the mercy of distance and the kindness of silence, and the way that every frightening word we give the between falls away, one by one, when we rest with it long enough to see it truly. Tonight has been about the quiet room between the rooms, the vast hush that holds the great houses of light apart, not an emptiness that frightens, but a restful spaciousness. The pause between two heartbeats made enormous. And tonight has been about you, resting here, becoming a little more like that peaceful between with every slow breath, your thoughts drifting farther apart, your worries dimming to faint far smudges, the hush within you widening and widening until it is nearly all of you. Let it be simple now. The rooms are far apart, and this is peace. The rooms are far apart, and this is peace. The rooms are far apart, and this is peace. The between is not empty, it is spacious. The between is not empty, it is spacious. The between is not empty, it is spacious. You are not falling, you are floating. You are not falling, you are floating. You are not falling, you are floating. Let the words repeat themselves, and then let even the words drift off down the widening hall, growing faint, growing far, until they too are only a glimmer, and then only the memory of a glimmer, and then only the peaceful dark, only the hush, only the room between the rooms, holding you softly on every side. None of this needs anything from you tonight. Not the galaxies, which turn their slow turning whether or not you watch them. Not the between, which holds its vast peace whether or not you understand it. Not the light, which crosses the deep hallway whether or not any eye is waiting. And not the facts, and not the numbers, and not the names, all of which you are free to let go of now, to let sink down and settle into the dark like leaves onto still water. You do not have to remember any of it. You do not have to carry any of it. You do not have to be anywhere, or do anything, or hold anything at all. The whole vast cosmos, mostly empty, mostly quiet, mostly at rest, asks nothing of you tonight but that you let yourself be held by it, that you let the peaceful dark do what it does to all things, which is to carry them, tenderly, toward rest. When this is over, another quiet exploration is waiting on the screen for you, another slow wander through some far corner of the cosmos, and you do not have to reach for it, or choose it, or do anything at all. Let it begin on its own. Let it drift in softly when it is ready. The way one dark hallway opens onto another, the way one dim room gives way to the next, so that the quiet can carry on unbroken while you sink deeper and deeper into sleep. There is no edge to fall off. There is only one peaceful room opening onto another, all the way down, all the way through the night. And if a small thought wants something to rest on as you drift, here is one, offered softly. To answer only if you are still awake, and only in the morning, and only if you wish. If you could float anywhere in the whole vast between, in any of the great peaceful hollows, or along any of the dim glowing threads, which quiet corner of the cosmos would you choose to rest in tonight? You do not have to answer now. Let the question drift beside you like a companion, undemanding, and let it too grow faint as you sink. Now let everything soften. Feel the weight of your body against the bed, held and heavy and warm. Feel the places where you touch the mattress, the pillow beneath your head, the blanket resting over you, and let each of them grow heavier and lower and more at ease. Let your shoulders settle down away from your ears. Let your jaw loosen, your brow smooth, your hands lie open and still. Feel your breath moving slowly, in and out unhurried, each breath a little longer and a little lower than the last, each pause between the breaths widening softly into its own small peaceful between, its own quiet room, its own vast hush made just for you. There is nowhere to go. There is nothing to do. There is only this, only the warm dark, only the widening quiet, only the peaceful spaciousness that holds all the galaxies apart, holding you now, tenderly, on every side. Drift there. Let the last of the day dissolve into the dark, like a faint light going soft on a far horizon. Let your thoughts drift so far apart that the hush between them becomes the whole of you. Let yourself float in the peaceful room between the rooms, held by nothing and by everything, cradled in the vast kind dark, carried, as all things are carried, toward rest. You are held. You are spacious. You are calm. There is nothing left to reach for, and nothing left to fear, only the wide peaceful between, only the slow quiet drift, only the soft dark closing over you like the gentlest of all skies. Rest now. Let go now. Sink softly into the hush that holds the whole universe, and let it hold you, all the way down, all the way into sleep. Sleep well.